ask you, up until this point, who has God been angry with for robbing him? Not the people, the priest. Chapter 1, verse 14, God says the priest had that which was good in their flock. God has not one time condemned the people for robbing him in the book of Malachi up until now. Second, who has the pronoun you referred to? You have robbed me. So far, the pronoun you in the book of Malachi has always referred to the priest. And I think to be consistent, it still refers to the priest. Point number 3. You have robbed me in tithes and offerings. They had taken the best of the tithe and vowed to give it to God, and instead kept it for themselves, and God had cursed them for this. In chapter 1, verse 14, chapter 2, verse 2. And while we're at it, why do people say that you have to give a tithe first, and only after you give a tithe is it an offering? Where is that taught in the Word of God? This text merely says that you have robbed me in tithes and offerings. Tithes, in my opinion, refers to those who qualify as tithe payers. The landowners, and the herdsmen, and the farmers. Whereas offering applies to everybody. The craftsmen, the tradesmen, and those who earn their occupation off the land. And yet, both of these categories had brought their tithes and their offerings to the priests, and the offerings instead had been, the best of them had been kept by the priest, and the priest had stolen the best from God, which they had vowed to give him. Who has been cursed up until this point? The priests have 4 times. Chapter 1, verse 14, chapter 2, verse 2. And now all of a sudden we are led to believe that now God is angry at the people of Israel, and he feels sorry for the priests. That now all of a sudden the priests don't have the tithe because the people had not brought it. That is inconsistent with the rest of the chapter and in its poor principles of interpretation. You have to look at what leads up to this verse. The text says, you have robbed me, this whole nation. The King James says, this whole nation. The New American Standard, the RSV, the NIV, the better translations add of you. This whole nation of you. And here again, people want to say, now he's talking about the whole nation of Israel. Not if he's talking about this whole nation of you priest. The word you refers to priest, the whole nation of you priest. Every priest in the nation had been guilty of keeping the best for themselves and robbing God. There are 9 reasons why Malachi should be interpreted differently than it is interpreted today. I believe that Malachi chapter 3 verse 10, bringing all the tithes into the storehouse, only refers to the dishonest priest who had stolen the best of the tithes and offerings that the people had given to them. These are my reasons. Number 1, Malachi is an old covenant. Malachi is an old covenant book and does not refer to Christians under the new covenant. Number 2, Malachi is addressed to the dishonest priest. The you refers to the priest. Malachi is not addressed to the church or even to the rest of Israel, in my opinion. But we know it's not addressed to the church. Number 3, in Malachi 3, tithes are still only food. This is 1,000 years after the tithing definition was given in Leviticus 27, and it still does not include money. Tithes are still only food. Number 4, the Levitical cities must be interpreted in any explanation of Malachi 3:10, and they are not. Most of the Levites and priests did not stay in Jerusalem most of the time. Number 5, the 24 courses and families of priests and Levites must be included in an interpretation of Malachi 3:10. And they're not. Only 2% normally served at the most at the temple any one time. Number 6, the nature of the curses and blessings of the Mosaic Law must be included in an interpretation of Malachi 3:10, and they're not. You cannot take the blessings and cursings of tithing out of the rest of the law and have it make sense. You cannot tithe and break the rest of the law and be blessed. You cannot keep the rest of the law and not tithe and be blessed. It doesn't work that way. That is poor interpretation of the Word of God. It is poor hermeneutics. It acts like tithing stands by itself, and the rest of the law has no relevance to tithing when it comes to the Christian church. Number 7, the priests were cursed for stealing. The priests were cursed 4 times for stealing before Malachi chapter 3. And to be consistent, God is still cursing the priests for stealing and not the people. Number 8, Nehemiah chapter 10, verse 37 must be included in a correct interpretation of Malachi 3:10, and it's not. The text says that the people brought the tithes to the Levites and priests in the Levitical cities, and it was only the responsibility of the Levites and priests to bring the tithes up from the cities into the storehouse. Therefore, Malachi 3:10 has not been correctly interpreted by the church, even in the context of the Old Covenant. My conclusion is that Malachi 3:10 must refer only to dishonest priests who had stolen the tithe and were being told to replace it. Once again, the only explanation that makes sense in the light of these 9 reasons is that Malachi 3:10, bringing all the tithes into the storehouse, only refers to the priest who had stolen the tithe and were being told to replace it.